So what's going on guys, Kate's here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you 21 tips and tricks and sounds of the forest. So some of these tips will be simple and others a lot more advanced. And no matter what type of player you are, you will find new information and even useful features that most players don't know. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then first things first, let's take a look at the map. One thing that I noticed is that if you look down as you're looking at the map, you kind of get closer view out of it. And also to zoom in and out, you just have to press the middle mouse button. And then on top of all of this, if you have your map open like this when you're running, then you won't be able to see it clearly, because it's moving way too much. So the way you fix this is just by holding any type of secondary item in your second hand, and this will fix it. So as you can see right now, we can just run and look at the GPS at the same time. Another thing that I want to talk about is your backpack. So many players don't actually know that if you press I, so your inventory key, it will open or go into your regular inventory. But instead if you hold it, then it brings up this backpack. And this will let you quick select things that you put on your backpack. So if you go ahead and click on your backpack right here, you can select what is on there. So just right click to remove and then add items. So let's say that I want to add a different weapon. So we just go ahead and click add. Now of course there is a limit, so you can only equip 2 items. Couple of healing items or basically the max limit of 2 of everything. Now I want to talk about is while I'm here is to make sure that you scroll all the way to the sides, because you never know what you might be missing. You never know what might be here that you don't know if you have it or not. So really scroll up and check out everything you got, because I have many times went into caves looking for a shotgun while I actually had it all this time. Then another tip I want to talk about is not to forget to build yourself a bench or 2. So if you sit on a bench, then it will restore your energy. There's a lot of different benches and chairs you can build, and I'll show you right here. So just open your crafting book by pressing B and then click on furniture a few times. And here you will find all sorts of things. I would really recommend to build a bench or a table. And while we also have our book open, the same as for our inventory, actually click through each one of these categories to look at what things you might want to build in the future, or at least familiarize yourself with all these things that you can craft. And by the way, each category has multiple pages. Alright, so let's talk about Kelvin for a minute. At the start of your game, one thing that you want him to do is to make him bring you some fish. Early game food is not the easiest thing to find, especially if you don't have good weapons yet. And build yourself a few drying racks as well, and you will have unlimited amounts of food forever, because he will get you fish like every 30 seconds. And then lastly, if you want to build a house, then ask him to bring you logs. So ordering Kelvin for logs or fish are basically the 2 only good options. And unlike we heard from the trailers, Kelvin cannot get overworked, so he will be doing your bidding 24/6, and once in a while he will take a break by sitting at your campfire or walking off for a bit, but he will always come back. But just remember that he can't get really overworked, so use him as much as you want. So then, while we are talking about fish and food, one other thing I want to talk about is the cooking and raw meat mechanic. So here we have a raw fish. You can eat raw food with nearly no downside, so you don't really need to cook them. Only cook your food if you want it to last longer, because raw food rots away a bit quicker than the dried or cooked food. But to be honest, the difference in Sons of the Forest is not that big. Another thing that I really like is the new storage and the transportation system. So no matter where your base is, but it's very useful especially on high towers and hills. So you can build yourself a log transport, that each time you place logs on the zip line, then when they finish at the end of the zip line, they will automatically go inside the storage like this. So we just simply take our rope gun, which if you don't have it already, then if you go to this cave, then you will be able to find it here. But anyways, what we want to do is attach this one side and then attach it again to the other side. And then at the end of the other side, where you want your logs transported as close as you can, build few storages, and then now each time you will send logs on the zip line, they will automatically go into the storage. The new mechanic is that if you drop a log close to a storage, then it will automatically go inside the storage, instead of just falling on the ground. So if we build storages close to the zip line, then we can build this very efficient log transportation. Then while we are talking about storages, another very useful structure are the crafted shelves. So make sure you build the shelf, because this lets you store items. Eventually, as you're exploring, you're going to run out of space in your backpack, and you won't be able to grab certain items that are very useful, like batteries, pills, and etc. So every time I'm back in my base, I just put few items on the shelves that I reached max capacity for. And unlike in other games where there are chests and vaults, in Sons of the Forest we just have shelves. Alright, so I wanna look one last time at Kelvin, and this will work for both companions. So basically, you wanna use Kelvin as much as you can, and you can actually reward his hard work by giving him items and clothing. So later in the game, you will find hoodies, suits and tuxedos that he will be able to use, the same as with Virginia. But where the tip comes into play is that if you're playing on a medium or hard difficulty, then it's very useful to give a weapon to your companion. I usually prefer to give Kelvin or Virginia my worst weapon, so revolver or the pistol, and by giving your companions a weapon, they will not only help you in battle to kill enemies faster, but a lot of times they will work as a distraction, so then you will get more time to do damage. And by the way, your companions don't need any ammo, so when you give them weapons, they can use it infinite amount of times. Another tip I want to talk about are crafted arrows. The fastest way of replenishing your arrows is by crafting them in the 3D printer bunker, but then if perhaps your base is far away from any such a bunker, then this tip will help you as well. So the answer is the birdhouse. If you're going to use a bow, then you will need a lot of feathers to make arrows. So you should build these bird houses right away, because they will let you collect feathers really easily. And if you open your crafting book, then you can find all of these blueprints in the utility section. So then let's move over to the next one, and this is a 2-in-1 kind of tip. So if you ever run out of food, ammo or weapons, or basically anything, then you can come to these bunkers all across the map and refill your inventory to the max. And the way it works that every box or crate you open, it will respawn each time you log in and out of the game. So some players, if they want to, can build a bed in the bunker or a crash site, then save the game and then log in and out. But if you don't want to do that, then just remember that if you ever need more items, then come back to this location. And by the way, I always recommend to have at least one shelter in your inventory, because if you ever need to leave the game, you can just click save the game and log out. The only way to save your progress is by using the shelter, so no matter what, always have a shelter or two in your inventory. And like I said, you can get a limited amount of shelters at the crash site. Then another quick tip is that if you ever find yourself on a high hill or some type of high ground, then you can actually equip a sled and use it while falling and you will take 0 damage. This sled you can craft at the 3D printer, and it basically works the same way as the turtle shell from the forest one. But then on top of all of this, you will take 0 damage as well if before falling you open your crafting book and then walk off the ledge. So this might become useful later on, when you will be exploring the map or perhaps building a tower base. Okay, so now I wanna talk about the mutant girl, aka your future girlfriend. I won't show her in this video for some obvious reasons, but basically after a couple of days of gameplay, she will eventually sit by your fire and befriend you. And having a fire is kind of a double-edged sword, because it will attract enemies but it will also attract her. Then another way to get with her is to make sure that you don't scare her away when you approach. So don't be holding any weapons and don't be wearing a mask or anything like that, because all of these items will scare her away. So after a while you'll be able to talk with her, so again I recommend to give her a shotgun or a pistol, because she will have unlimited amounts of ammo. So if you're as well ever low on ammo, you might as well give it to her and she will help you defend your base. Another thing I want to talk about with cannibals is that the enemies are less likely to attack you if you don't attack them back. There are of course certain enemies that are going to attack you no matter what, but most open world cannibals are not going to attack you as often if you don't attack them back. Alright, so one other thing I'm gonna talk about is how to cut down a tree properly. I see a lot of people complaining that trees are hitting their base. So basically what you need to know is that the tree will always fall in the direction that you place your last hit. So before the tree falls, just go to the opposite direction of your base and hit it once. Or you can completely disregard everything I just said and go into your options and turn off the structural damage. But of course only girls do that. So if you're a man, then keep it on. Then another quick tip is that if you don't ever want to die, then by just pressing the E key it will open your inventory. And in the single player mode it will pause the game. So if you're ever low HP or run out of stamina, then just open your inventory and just wait few seconds, or consume a med and then wait till you're again full HP. Another tip I want to talk about is the winter. So winter will come every 10 to 15 days. And the best way to prepare yourself is to either way build a base close to a waterfall like this, because this water won't stop flowing and it will not freeze into winter. Or on the other hand, you can just build a shelter and sleep few times in a row. Both ways will work, but if you're like me and have built yourself an island base already, then sleeping bunch of times through the winter is an easy fix to remove it forever. Then while we're talking about enemies, another tip that you can use is that if you're playing on medium or hard difficulty, then each few days more different types of cannibals and monsters will be raiding your base, and sometimes even you will see very hard and strong enemies, like the two-headed tall monster and much more. Well, a fix I found is that if you keep saving your game every day, then one day before you got the strong enemy, then you can just load back in the previous day, before that monster appeared. And because the game has a random enemy spawning, so this way if we come back to the previous day, then we will get a different monster spawn. So if you ever run into hard enemies, then just load back into the previous day. Or on the other hand, you can of course regard all of this and just run from your base for a few minutes and then come back and most of the enemies should be gone. So now let's take a look at the next tip, and we can of course use blueprints, but we can as well use this one stick structure that especially big enemies can get stuck on and take damage. So we just simply place a stick, and then if we get our axe and see this arrow, then we just left click once, and now our stick will move in this position, and it will get sharpened. And then lastly we can put few rocks around it to reinforce it. Then one of the last tips is that to never build doors, because enemies and other creatures can open them. So the best door design is by far just to make a zipline. But then another easier method is just to build this type of building. So we simply take a rope and place it outside of the base. And then inside the base we build this type of stairs. So again we just left click to get these arrows changing, and then we place half logs one by one. And now we have an easy and fast working door that we can use from both sides and that the enemy can't access. And then for the last and final tip, I would recommend to never build a tree house, because if you do not know, then the enemies can actually destroy trees. And if that tree was supporting your house, then the whole thing will go down as well. So the tree house may be cool, and in the forest one, there were really good base locations. But in Sons of the Forest, the enemies are a bit more smarter and more powerful. So if you don't want your base destroyed, then look for a different base location. And if you're interested in my top 7 base location video, then I recommend to watch my previous video. And that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback or other good Sons of the Forest tips that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell. So this way you could support the channel and you wouldn't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in my next video. So take it easy, peace.